Have you ever flown on a passenger jet before? What if we didn't know how to land them? Like every time you wanted to fly across the country or across the state, once we were over your destination, you had to suit up and parachute out, and then the jet would crash land somewhere isolated or into the ocean afterward. First of all, that sounds very risky, and I bet very few people would actually fly. But even if there were a lot of people flying, think about how wasteful and how expensive that becomes to have to replace the whole jet every time there's a flight. If that were the case, only the wealthiest people on the planet could even afford to fly. It wouldn't be the practical form of transportation that it is today. We wouldn't be the connected world community that we are today. We'd be isolated and fractured as a world community. Many people would never even consider taking trips outside of their own nation like we can do today. Well, guess what? You know that ridiculous scenario? That's essentially how our space program has been operating for the last few decades. Up until the 21st of December. That's Monday this week. So why did it take us so long to start looking into reusable components for space travel? Well, think of it this way. Imagine trying to pilot a pencil over the Empire State Building in a hurricane and landing it on a target the size of about a dime on its head, upright. Sounds pretty tough, right? What I just described is still easier than what SpaceX accomplished earlier this week, and boy are they excited, and you should be too, so I want to explain why. If you don't know who Elon Musk is, he's the head of SpaceX. That's the company that just safely landed their Falcon 9 booster in Cape Canaveral Air Force Station after it was used to deliver a payload of 11 commercial satellites into orbit, and that's a feat that was never accomplished in the history of spaceflight. Elon Musk and SpaceX have one primary ambition that drives them, and that's to colonize Mars. One of the big hurdles between us and colonizing Mars is the cost of space travel, especially the cost of getting things into orbit. The whole process of getting into orbit is layers upon layers of tricky, but one of the more expensive layers is the cost of production of rocket phases. And this is where SpaceX has carved out a revolutionary niche for themselves. They've streamlined their manufacturing process to minimize the cost of their own homemade rocket components. The next step was making the rocket phases reusable. Now this is a step that Musk and SpaceX have been heavily promoting as being an absolutely necessary and crucial step to make colonizing Mars a feasible possibility in the future. No one really expected that it would be an overnight success story, and that's a good thing because it definitely wasn't. This video was taken from a booster landing attempt on Tuesday, April 14th, earlier this year, 2015. After delivering a payload into orbit, SpaceX has been using the opportunity to test out the recovery of those boosters used to put those payloads into orbit. Now on this one, the landing was actually successful, but the lateral momentum caused it to tip and then the booster exploded. This is another video where a Falcon 9 booster was used to put materials into orbit like satellites or resources for the International Space Station. In this case, there was a lack of hydraulic fluid causing the grid fins to lock. SpaceX seemed to be getting closer and closer to a successful landing of their booster. A Falcon 9 exploded before reaching orbit, destroying its payload in the process. This was a bit of a dark day for SpaceX, as you might imagine. They put further launches on hold and investigated the manufacturing process, their process for flight checks prior to launch, and just made certain that there were no other launches lost. Then on Monday evening of this week, they nailed it. Cheers Elon and SpaceX. You just brought Mars a little bit closer to Earth.